Hello and welcome to Life's Like That, the podcast where we talk to people on their journey and call out the second chance hero in all of us. I'm Talie Starr. Thank you so much for joining us, and we really hope you enjoyed this episode. Hello and welcome. It's so good to have you with us today, Kobi Shetty. Do you want to introduce yourself to us?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Kobi Shetty. I'm the Greens member for Balmain in New South Wales Parliament. I'm a mum of 3. I like riding my bike and making things and, yeah, lots of things going on.
It's very busy. And if I was to say to you the word hero, what do you think of?
That's a funny one. I probably think of my dad. He was a firefighter for 30 years and was a real hero figure for me, just with his community service and his amazing stories of rescues and dangerous situations. And yeah, he really comes to mind first when I think of that word.
He sounds like a really incredible person.
Yeah, he's wonderful. He's very thoughtful, and I think my desire to be someone who is doing community service has really come from having him as that shining example of someone who was a real hero in my life. Yeah.
And when you were younger, what sort of qualities did you have?
Oh, that's a good question. I was a very quiet younger kid, very shy. My mum tells me that when she took me to school, I was outraged that I had to go somewhere that she wasn't with me for so many days of a week. And she had to sort of pry me out of the car. Even though I quite enjoyed school once I got there, I really liked being at home and was very shy and reserved kind of kid. So I was always very thoughtful and, really liked school and really loved reading. And it took me a little while to come out of my shell. But when I got a bit older, I got a bit more confident.
Yeah.
So it was a real shift. I remember being scared to do show and tell and just being a bit of a quiet and shy kid. But yeah, loved getting involved and doing things in the background, I guess, but was very shy to be up front when I was really small. And then, I'm not sure what changed. My parents are a real mix. My dad's a bit more of a quiet, listening kind of person. My mum's really outgoing. So I guess I'm a bit of a mix of both of them and sometimes can be quite introverted, and obviously now am out in the world in a bit more of an extroverted way with my job. But maybe, it doesn't come naturally all the time.
What do you think changed to help you to be, because you're in quite a public role now. What do you think changed for that?
We moved around quite a bit when I was a kid, which was absolutely terrifying as a shy child. But we moved from Victoria to New South Wales for about 18 months. And then just before I turned 8, we moved to Perth when my dad got the job in the fire brigade. So I think moving around schools really built my resilience and gave me a little bit more confidence in myself to be able to start somewhere new and make new friends. And then I think I did some of those classic things, like got involved in debating when I was in year 6 and found a bit of confidence in that, and then did a bit of drama and things like that when I got to high school that just really brought me out of my shell and made me feel a bit more comfortable with who I was and being happy with being a bit odd and having a really weird mix of interests. And I think I just found my confidence in myself as I got a bit bigger.
I love that. I did drama as well, and it was something that I think really helped me to step into who I was, because I could learn to be myself with a character sometimes, and it helped me to kind of find that. So, and I didn't do debating, but I did public speaking, and I found that kind of helped to move into that space as well.
Yeah, I think drama is really good for kids who are maybe naturally not that confident, just to give them the comfort to be a bit silly and to be their whole selves in front of people without worrying too much about what everyone thinks all the time.
Yeah, definitely. I think the creative arts often have shy people in them, introverts who energize from being on their own and then create something incredible. I love that you're a creative person. That's something I didn't know about you. I'm still learning about you as we've only recently met, although known each other, I think, for a little while.
Yeah.
It's been World Environment Day, and I know that this is something that really interests you. Do you know what it was that brought you into that space of interest?
It's interesting. I think I've always been really interested in environmental action, and I found a children's book that I made when I was in high school for an English project that was all about this frog. We had an assignment to make a children's book, and it was about this frog and how his habitat was destroyed, and he was off trying to find himself a new home. And I'd forgotten about it completely, and I dug it up at my parents' house and had a real chuckle, just thinking that I was already aware of that when I was younger. And I also remember doing an assignment for English again. On you had to do a song, and I picked Midnight Oil and talked about future generations and environmental damage and all the wonderful things that Midnight Oil used to sing about, which is why I'm really starstruck when I see Peter Garrett walking around in our neighbourhood, because he lives not too far from me. So I think I must have. We were a very politically engaged family when I was younger. My parents grew up on farms, and I think I just always had an awareness of how important the environment was to us as humans, to just be able to live our lives and be at one with nature. But I don't know that it was such a focus until I got a little bit older, and particularly when I had kids. I got really, really worried about just the kind of world that I would be raising them in and what their future was going to look like, and that kind of turbocharged my interest in all things environmental.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. Like writing a book in high school about it. And I'd love to see this book about a frog. Maybe
It's
it's
not
something
very
you can.
good. But I'll show you. I'll still show you. The drawings are
Cool.
pretty good, but the story, I think I could have done a bit better, probably.
Is that by adult standards or young child standards?
Probably by my grown-up standards, I'd
Yeah.
say. Yeah, yeah.
But I love that. So there's always been a deep-rooted desire to do something about the environment and how it could impact, like as you said, your children and what's happening. So what did you do to take that journey to, like, because I know that you've studied around this sort of area. Do you want to expand
Yeah.
on that for us?
Yeah, so I traveled around a lot when I was in my early 20s, and then decided that I ran out of money and decided I better come back and get serious about getting a proper job, and ended up working in fraud prevention in banking, which
Wow.
was a super interesting place to work, but didn't fulfill that passion that I had about community service and about looking after the environment. So when I got pregnant with my first child, I think I was 30, and I decided to go back to uni and study community development and sustainability. And I had no idea what I was going to do with it, but I just felt like I needed to pivot and do more in that space. And so I started studying a Bachelor of Arts in Community Development and Sustainability, and chugged away online through Open Uni for many, many years. And I haven't finished the bloody thing because I got sidetracked with politics, but I do have plans to finish my studies eventually. I've got about 6 or 7 units to go. Yeah, so I just wanted to give back and didn't really know what that would look like, but figured if I studied it and understood what communities need and understood what sustainability looked like in lots of different areas, that would set me on the right course to figure out what to do next and try and make a difference.
Yeah, that is brilliant. I love that. You just wanted to know more, so you just started discovering more and learning more, which I think is brilliant when you work in politics, to have that deep understanding of the environment and the things that are happening at the moment.
Yeah.
What do you think are some of our biggest concerns that are happening with the environment at the moment?
I mean, obviously, climate change is terrifying. And I think it all hit us like a real ton of bricks in that summer of 2019, 2020, when we had that black summer of bushfires. And it wasn't my first experience with severe bushfires, because I lived in Melbourne through the Black Saturday fires. And although they were out of the city, the sky was black, and it was really pretty intense and scary at the time, a few years before that. But I think 2019, 2020, when we just had the city blanketed in this thick layer of smoke for such a long time, and we were watching communities around us getting burnt to the ground, and people in boats. Remember those images from New Year's Eve where people had gone out onto the water in their boats because the town that they were in was burning. that just was a real shock to the system, I think, for a lot of us who knew that there was a problem and wanted to make a difference. But I think the reality that climate change was well and truly upon us really hit home that summer. And I remember organising a protest at my kids' school where we wore masks, and the kids made all these posters about trying to get our federal government to really take up the call for better environmental protection when we were all really horrified about what we were seeing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that stuff really hit home and continues to be a big issue just around the ability for us to respond in an ongoing way to just one after the other of climate crises when we've got floods and bushfires and June's already been 4 degrees hotter than usual temperatures, and May was the hottest May on record for over 100 years. So I think climate change is the biggest issue of our time. And I'm very concerned that all the scientists are telling us that we're hitting these tipping points and it's going to be very, very hard to claw back. And I guess I don't think of it in a way that means we should give up because we've already got this inevitability about it. But I think we've just got to really start taking it more seriously because it's a very, very big threat.
And what do you think it is that stops people from actually coming on board with understanding climate or wanting to do something about it?
I mean, I think at the moment there's obviously a lot of pressure on cost of living. And so when people's material standards are dropping and they're struggling to pay their bills or find a roof over their heads or be able to afford to eat, and we've got a community pantry in my office, and we're seeing an unbelievable amount of need, more than we ever anticipated, from people who traditionally would have, they're working and they would have been able to afford food. It's really starting to crunch. And so I think the focus has really come off climate action because there's this really material, drastic need at the moment in our community. And so people have really focused on that, which is fair enough. I think too, there's a bit of fatigue when you feel like we've known about this stuff for 50 years, 60 years. Scientists have been talking about it for a long time. I remember talking about the ozone layer when I was in year one, I think. So it's not a surprise. And so the people that are working in this space get a bit fatigued. People start to feel like the people that are making decisions aren't listening to them. They aren't taking it seriously enough. And so I think there's a bit of that. But in terms of governments too, I mean, there's just too many vested interests in politics that are driving the decision making, and unfortunately corporate interests and powerful mining lobbies and those kind of organisations have too much power, and that's really putting a handbrake, I think, on some of the stuff that we need to see happening more urgently in this country for sure.
Yeah, so when you're looking at that, maybe take yourself outside of politics first and then we can come into politics. But when you look at that as a person who has done study in this area and is continuing to do that study, how does that respond with your values and your spirit in what you're seeing?
I mean, I think that's what drives me to do this job, that I think we all have to just do what we can, And so I think from my perspective, it's not an easy job to do with 3 kids. My kids, 2 of them are in primary school, one's just started high school, and it's busy and I don't get to spend as much time with them as I'd like to. But I think they've been really understanding about what's driving me and the fact that I want to make sure that the world is still livable for them and for their kids and their grandkids. So I think that passion to just push back against all of these other things and do everything that we can to kind of have, community level collective action to really push us in the right direction just keeps me going. So I think you can have your moments where you think, oh, this is so depressing. I really wish we were doing more. But it's important, I think, to then try and counter that with getting out and doing something. And I think a lot of people in this space get a lot out of mobilising and still working on it instead of giving up.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because sometimes it can feel so despairing, like, what are we doing? Why is no one listening? And I guess sometimes there's so many issues happening at the one time. It's like, what do you listen to?
Yeah, and what do you do first?
Exactly. And I think sometimes people go, oh, it's all too hard, we'll drop everything. Or we'll just focus on one where we can kind of pick up one and drop the other and pick up one, and like we can move in between them.
Yeah, that's right. And I think the school strike for climate kids really inspired me. I just thought they were incredible, that they could get themselves organised and really hold the adults and the decision makers to account. They were wonderful. And I think if we can hold in our hearts that kind of passion to try and make things better for younger people, then we can keep going no matter what.
I was going to bring that up. I was going to ask what you thought about it because I found it absolutely incredible to watch them
Yeah.
and to see how quickly they mobilized and how powerful their voices were. I think
Yeah.
we often say young people don't have a voice that will resonate powerfully, but I think that it was so powerful to watch them and to
Yeah.
hear them and to listen to what they have to say. And I think sometimes we can get caught up in, climate is all about us. And, it doesn't matter because maybe we're getting older, we don't need to care as much. And we forget that there's generations coming after us that we
Yeah.
can actually do something about. And I found them very inspiring as well. And I
Yeah.
thought, wow, we're going to be in really good hands as this group of people come through.
Yeah, and my oldest was in kindy at the time, and so I took him out of school and took him to the that really big climate strike in Sydney
Yeah.
with my husband and my mum. And for him, it was really amazing to see kids driving the agenda. And we took a bunch of photos. His kindy teacher was beautiful. She said, "Please send in the photos. I want him to talk to his class about what it was like to go to the climate strike and what they're trying to achieve." So he got to take that message back to his fledgling bunch of kindy friends and talk to them about the power of collective action. And I thought that was a really amazing teaching opportunity for me with my 6-year-old at the time.
What do you think it is that young people get that we're not getting?
I think that young people aren't hamstrung by the notions of what's possible. And I think that in the political sphere, for sure, there are so many boxes and limits and guardrails around what governments and what adults think is possible. And because they're young and they are still figuring out how the world works and they haven't been socialized to accept the worst version of whatever's on offer, they just have a really creative and open-minded view of what's possible. And I think that that's what we lose when we get into being grown-ups and told that, oh no, that's pie in the sky, you definitely can't do that. And I think kids have still got that kind of imaginative perspective about all the possibilities in the world, which we really desperately need in adult life and in politics especially.
Yeah, absolutely. That wide-eyed, anything is possible, we can work together. I mean, I love when, it sounds terrible, but I love when we have hung parliaments because when we have a hung parliament, I've noticed there's a much bigger collaboration of ideas coming together and bringing out different things so that we can actually get what the people want and the people need. I don't know how you find that.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know why people are scared of hung parliaments. I think that they are amazing in terms of trying to drive a bit more of a consensus position on things or bring different perspectives in rather than just having a government who's got a particular agenda, just being able to get that agenda in place. I think it just fosters a lot more communication and negotiation. And it's the way that a lot of parliaments in other democracies, like in Europe, are set up, where they have a proportional representation system where one party doesn't ever form government. They have governments that are alliances that they have to figure out when the election results roll in and figure out who they're aligned with and how they can make it work. And I think that makes for a much, much better democracy.
I think I agree with you there. And what do you think? I mean, we won't go too deeply into it, but I was thinking, what do you think's happening at the moment in the world of politics? Like, I feel like we are claiming a place that seems loud, but is it actually a collective position?
Yeah, I think we've hit a really dangerous point in politics, which is a real confluence of the way that lots of other things are happening. So we've got pretty centralized media. The media landscape is pretty narrow. And so we've lost a lot of independent journalism. We've lost a lot of local journalism. And so that concentrated media landscape, I think that is very conflict driven, has a lot to answer for in terms of it's a lot about clickbait these days for media and for traditional and social media. And so the things that have got conflict are the things that get the most views, are the things that sell the most advertising for those organizations. And so I think we've gotten into this landscape where polarized debate is the thing that gets the biggest platform. And that's, I think, a huge part of feeding this really divisive black and white, you're wrong, I'm right, left and right version of politics that we're seeing at the moment. And it's, I think the tech bros are obviously, they have a lot to answer for in that space as well. It's highly unregulated. We've got the likes of Donald Trump kind of doing everything he can to just let free speech run rampant to the point that it becomes abusive. And, that kind of environment is very, very challenging, I think, and makes people it makes it harder for people to have respectful conversations. The stuff that people say to each other on the internet, I still can't believe that anyone can say that to another person, even if you're sitting behind a screen. And so I think a lot of that is really feeding this I'm right and you're wrong and everything is very kind of binary. I think it's really feeding that. And so that's why we're seeing the rise of the far right and this kind of politics of blaming the other rather than trying to work together to solve these really big and sometimes intractable problems that we're facing as a broader society at the moment. Yeah, it's pretty scary.
Yeah. I think that whole kind of wanting to have a broader debate and have more ideas in the debate, I think is so important. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to do these posts and podcasts. So we do have broader debates that we can talk to people that maybe we haven't thought about listening to before or hear their ideas, or maybe it's even like, oh, I thought you were more like this and now I'm hearing you more like this. Like, really, because the more we can hear people, the more we can start to think, well, is what I'm thinking actually where I need to be at the moment? Or do I need to broaden that a bit more? Or,
that's right.
Have I just been in too narrow a world? Or maybe my views are right. And by talking to other people, I'm going, oh, I feel even more buoyant because I'm kind of sitting with what resonates with me. But that whole abusive lens that is happening, and it just seems to be getting more and more exponentially worse.
Yeah.
I find that so concerning. Like you say, although I think we are even shifting to we say that in person to people as well, not just online.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the reason that we struggle to get diverse candidates in politics, because it's women especially, we cop a huge amount of abuse online doing any sort of publicly facing role. And so it really scares people off putting themselves out there because it's not easy to cop that kind of feedback. So I think it's a shame. I mean, the way that I try and work is to always have these conversations that are sometimes difficult with people who have got really different perspectives to me, and always try and approach them with respect. Because I think even though we don't agree with each other, it doesn't mean you need to have a fight about it. You should be able to listen, and sometimes you can pick up a lot of really useful lessons from listening to someone whose life is very different, whose worldview is very different, or who thinks that there's another way about going about something. Yeah, we're starting to lose that, and I think we've got to hang on really tight to try and have good, open, respectful communication.
How would you turn that around if you could? Or how are you turning that around? I mean, you're talking about having respect for relationships with other people. You're talking about listening to other ideas, hoping for more diversity. But what other things do you think could turn that around for people?
Yeah, I mean, I think within my own job, I just always try and centre that. So no matter what the debate is, I will talk to anyone about anything that they're interested in talking about and understanding different views. It is hard to get that cut through more broadly because the stuff, as I was saying, the stuff that gets the attention is the conflict. And so, I mean, I just encourage people who have a platform to actually think about the harm that you're doing and the example that you're teaching other people by constantly kind of taking this really aggressive, conflict-driven approach, and think about listening to other people and trying to engage in some of these debates, because there's a lot of controversial things happening all over the world and the local to worldwide kind of issues. I'd really encourage people to try and engage respectfully with each other. I don't think it's that hard, but unfortunately it just seems to be going in the wrong direction. But I think a lot of people that have public platform aren't taking that responsibility seriously enough, and they may be just wanting to get the sugar hits of the attention or the media hits and not thinking about the harm that they're doing in the longer term by driving a wedge between different groups in the community about different issues. And I think it's a bit divergent, but I think watching the World Cup has been a really lovely example of how important it is for us to like focus on those really positive examples and come together. And I loved watching Australia win against Turkey on Sunday, and you know that a lot of the team are migrants and refugees at a time that we're dealing with really divisive rhetoric in the public, particularly on that issue and the rise of One Nation. It's a nice time to try and use those opportunities to celebrate our diversity and hope that that kind of gets a bit of cut through, maybe with some people that are feeling disenfranchised about the state of the world and looking at someone to blame.
Yeah, definitely. I think anything that unifies us is a positive thing. And I think when I have a conversation with someone that is from a different thinking or a different background, I try to think about what's our unifying factor here. What are we both like? We come back to climate change. Our unifying factor is climate. You know, we want a world that's good for the next generations coming through. We want to protect it and keep it safe. So what's unifying us? What do you think are the unifying factors around climate change for people?
I mean, I think we always have more in common than we have different. And so certainly the environment is something that can bring us all together. I mean, I think a good example is probably just around some of the stuff that's happening with farmers. So farmers are obviously on the front lines of climate change, and some farmers, there's a group called Farmers for Climate. Some of them are doing incredible work on the front lines, trying to look at regenerative farming practices, trying to push back against some of the models of kind of big agriculture, and getting out and talking to their communities about what needs to happen in these areas that are traditionally kind of voting in a particular way and where climate change might not be sort of front and centre of the policy direction. Those kind of connections with people from all different communities who can see how important it is really important, because sometimes I think too in the climate space, and I see it happening in the parliament, there's this kind of regional city pitted against each other and the city elites telling us how we should do it and not thinking about the impact out in the regions and the rural areas. I think there's a lot that we can do to work together to make lives better for people in the regions. And as city dwellers, you know, we've got to respect those farming communities who are growing our food and doing that really tough work to make sure that we are all getting what we need and we can eat and we've got all the kind of materials that we need to get on with our lives. So I think that can be a really unifying thing if we're open to talking about things like that.
I love that. And just bringing it back to basics, the food that we're eating, like you said, if we think about the food that we're eating and we think about the people who brought it to us and what they've done, I think that's an incredible in with climate change issues. And I love that farming community. I've heard some of the things that they're doing and I'm just in awe of what they're actually achieving and doing and thinking to do.
There's this incredible woman farmer, and I wish I could think of her name, but I was reading an article. They're trying to push back against some of the gas pipelines that are going in, and she was going to ride her horse across a huge swathe of the state to push back against these gas lines that are getting put in. You know, I think there's, farmers and rural and regional people doing amazing things and being really creative in how they're tackling the climate crisis.
That's amazing. So we've had a journey through quite an interesting, I'm loving our conversation. I wish we could keep talking.
Yeah.
And we started with a space of how you got into all of this. And I'm just thinking, where do you think you're going now with what you're doing?
That's a really good question. I mean, I think for now I'm well and truly entrenched in kind of this world of being in the parliament and listening to my community and doing as much as I can to push the major parties to do more and better on particularly the issues of climate change and environment. And it's really wonderful. We've got an amazing powerhouse of 7 women MPs in the New South Wales Parliament, 4 upper house and 3 lower house. And, we're all working on different fronts to tackle this stuff. We want to end native forest logging and, transfer to renewable energy. There's lots of wonderful things happening. So I'm kind of really embedded in that space for the foreseeable future. But I think too, I'm a lifetime learner, and I think I'm going to be working in this space for a very, very long time beyond my time in Parliament, and just keeping on working in the community and trying to bring people on board. We've got lots of work to do and lots of amazing people doing it from different angles. I don't know if you've seen any of the work of Dr. Rebecca Huntley, who's a local in our community as well. Our kids go to school together, and she's done all that amazing study about the kind of the way that people think about climate change and how we should be talking about it to make sure that people aren't alienated by this debate or overwhelmed. There's plenty of different ways to keep pushing along on this project, this kind of collective project of ours, from lots of different perspectives. And I think I'm just going to be in the mix for a long time trying to make things better, hopefully.
Yeah, well, I feel very comfortable that you're going to be in it for a while. I think you're a wonderful leader in this space. If you were going to encourage us in the area of climate change and how we can keep going and not give up, what sort of things would you tell us to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the time when people think of environmental action, they think about the things they do as an individual. So I know I'm really committed to doing things like not using any plastic bags, and I ride my bike around as much as I can, and all that stuff, really, really important. You know, we've got to keep an eye on how we're living in the world and our personal contribution. But I would just really encourage people to take collective action. I think, we talk about the school strike for climate. If we'd had all those kids at home doing their recycling and saving water, it'd be fantastic. But you see the power of working together to really push the agenda of the community with the people who are decision makers. And so I think if you're feeling a bit down in the dumps about, the lack of action, try and join a local group that is doing some stuff on community. And there's lots doing loads of different things. There's people cleaning up rivers, and there's people working on big campaigns against gas projects, and there's people trying to end native forest logging, and there's people working in community gardens. So try and find the space where it fits for you and where you can connect to other people, because it's a really nice feeling to know that you're working together, not just with that little group, but that there's all these broad connections into the, this really big collective project that we've all got going. I remember watching, can't remember his name, Bill McKibben. Bill McKibben was talking about climate action and sort of the fight, the uphill battle that we're up against with a lot of corporate interests and things. But at the end of his speech, he had all of the different individuals and groups who were working across the world on this project of environmental action. And it started off slow and it ended up like the Star Wars reel, where it goes really, really fast and there's so many names that you can't possibly read them all, because there's literally millions of people across the planet working in their own communities and connecting across different areas to try and work on this kind of shared project. So I think of those people, get involved in whatever way you can, and try and kind of do it together with others, because it makes you feel a lot better when you know that it's not just you trying to turn off the tap earlier or get your soft plastics to Woolies. It's good to do those really big collective projects as well.
I really love that. And I love that you broadened it across the world. I think sometimes we're so busy doing our little individual kind of things. And, I'm really into doing the recycling, and, we've got the green little FOGO bins, which are collecting the food waste. And, I'm trying to do everything I can. And I think when we keep doing our part and then think, oh, actually, our part is part of a much bigger picture. So it's a global picture that we're doing this in. I think that immediately lifts me and makes me think, oh, hang on, I'm doing this, and then all these other people are doing this. And then I love that you're saying, and it's not just an individual thing, because I think we forget sometimes and we try and do it on our own and we feel more fatigued on our own.
Yeah.
But when we join something that has that collective voice that we resonate with, then we really we feel more powerful. Like we feel like we've got something we can contribute, something that will make a difference. And I love that you're calling that collective movement to go and join a group that resonates with you, that will help climate. And I think even just in life, it's always nice being with other people that have those same values. It builds you up as well.
Community is just one of the most important things in our lives. And we're part of this big ecosystem of people that want the same thing. So it's nice to remember that. Yeah.
That's so cool. And looking back to that shy, reserved young girl that didn't want to speak and was sort of hidden in the background and had great skills to do stuff in the background, find her way through moving all the time and meeting new people and being in different spaces. I think it's interesting that you went traveling then and did the same sort of thing.
Yeah, I did it to myself.
Yes. But I also love that. What qualities do you think that she has gained now that she didn't have when she was a little girl?
Yeah, I think she'd be totally spun out that I've ended up doing this job. It's very funny. I mean, I think now the ability to listen and connect with people is the thing I maybe carried through, but that I've found the most valuable in a job like this. Because I think often when you're an elected representative and you've got to get up and stand up in front of the community, it can feel like you're the most important voice in the room. And I think all of us in this role need to really remember that our job is actually listening to people. But I think I've definitely gained a level of confidence and comfort in being that person to represent my community and sort of, yeah, feeling confident enough to do that. It's a big shift from shy little me who wouldn't show off my thing at show and tell.
Yes.
Yeah, but I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful for it. And I guess for any other little kids that are also a bit shy and reserved, just know that your life experience and things can bring you so far when you're older, and it's really a journey. It's a journey of constant learning, and I'm still learning, you know, and I love learning and trying to figure out new things and not get too fixed in my thinking about stuff. I think it's really important to be open and listening. Yeah.
I think that is such a great note to leave us on. That listening, that deep listening where we actually hear each other and resonate with each other, the confidence that can come through a lifetime of learning. I think that is so important. We're constantly evolving in our thinking, just in, you know, science, in environment, in everything that we're dealing with. Like, I think when we keep that open mind, we keep learning, we keep working together, we understand our position in the big scheme of everything.
Yeah.
I think it is just such a powerful thing to leave us with. And I just have an image of you in Parliament standing up and representing the people. And I just want to thank you for that.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for being with us. I have absolutely loved our conversation. And
Me too.
thank you for joining us on Life's Like That, Second Chance Heroes.